Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Yura and welcome back to the month of Meadowlands Cope Week. Today is a cry for help. This is not a deck profile. This is me begging on the ground. I'm on my hands and knees. I'm doing everything in my absolute power to make this deck not suck ass. All right, I'm gonna get this completely off my chest. I hate building Inzektor in this format. It sucks because I love the theme of these cards. I love Common Rider. I love Tokusatsu in general. It's like my favorite shit of all time. It just brings me so much joy. And these cards in this format make me want to die. They actually just make me so sad. That said, we are here today to try and fix this. You'll notice at the top of this, Meadow Inzektor V5. There are only like 2 decks in this format that I have had to go to 5 different variations of to try and get the deck to a point where I'm okay with it. It's Inzektor and the stupid zombie synchro deck, neither of which I think are very good. That said, I am here today to talk specifically about Inzektor, and I'm going to go through a couple of the other variations of this deck that we've gone through to get to this point, which is realistically back where we started. Inzektor is now pretty much back to where we started with it. We've gone through a bunch of different variations. None of them have felt good. So you know what? I'm just going to put a bunch of purple cards in it and pray to God that it works out. We're going to see. So before we get into the actual card by card and the nitty gritty of things, I am going to go through the old lists so you can see how this has evolved over time. And we are going to start, hang on, that's actually not right. I'm in the wrong spot. Well, that's not right either. One moment. All right, now we are at the right spot. So this was the very first version of Inzektor that we played. And this is very similar to how it is seen historically, how people in the format library tournaments have been playing it. This is very like standard for the time. It looks very similar. I think the main changes that we made were adding the Summoner Monks and the Armageddon Knights, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but Inzektor in like historical context is using like Pot of Duality to find their cards more consistently. It's using Threatening Roar to keep their Dragonfly on board. Like a lot of the kind of like basic stuff, right? It's very straightforward. Then we turned it into, I think this is just a more touched up version of that list. Yeah, it's a more touched up version of that list, but we're now playing Plague Spreader to access some synchro plays, namely Underground Arachnid, which is kind of like Relinquished, which is a funny card. But again, deck just was not feeling great, unfortunately. Then we slimmed that list down a little bit. I think we cut out the Upstart Goblins and added in E-Tellies to try and make some more Xyz plays. We wanted to mess around more with making synchro monsters and trying to do that a little more consistently, but the E-Tellies just never really felt good enough. So they end up getting cut for version 4, which is the instant fusion version of this list. This is the variation of the list that I talked about in the Ninja deck video. And this is the new list that, I'm going to be honest, barely even got tested. I think this is actually probably worse than the E-Telly list, and maybe even worse than like the other lists before it. I think Hanzo, unfortunately, here is just a little too slow. And while it's cute that you can go Hanzo to transformation to Dragonfly, I think you could do better things. And that is how we end up here. This is a deck that is not going to do anything unbelievably impressive turn 1. This is definitely one of those decks that is going to, once it gets its graveyard set up, then it is going to kill you into the sun. But Inzektor is kind of weird. This is a deck that very much needs to keep its board presence online in order to consistently do things. And we have a couple of ways of making that happen. We're on the Call the Haunteds and a bunch of trap cards to try and keep our guys safe from the million different things that will run over a 1000 attack monster, because the Inzektor monsters on their own, aside from like exactly Gigamantis and even Hopper to an extent, are pretty damn small. This version of the deck is using Insect Imitation to turn ladybugs into dragonflies or centipedes, which is something that was seen historically. It is the version of the deck that I like the most, even though I don't think it's like meta. I think more so than anything, the big problem with Inzektor is we only have one Dragonfly and one Hornet. One Hornet I could deal with. The one Dragonfly, that's where things get rough. Because a lot of the like historical combos when I was initially looking into this deck was like you'd go like Dragonfly for Centipede, Centipede search Dragonfly, and then you go from there on the following turn and just kind of pop off. We don't have that here. We have one Dragonfly, and that's not ideal. It's really not ideal. So I have a lot of thoughts on Inzektor in this format. Not a lot of them are good, but this is a deck that I really want to see do something because I do really like these cards. It feels, in a sense, kind of like Dragoonity, only the difference is that Dragoonity has Dragon Ravine, and these cards have the unsearchable insect imitation to e-tele their guys into something else, which is significantly worse. That is so much worse, it's not even funny. Additionally, this deck also has a problem of, while we are on Instant Fusion to try and make something of our low investment boards, believe it or not, much like winged beasts, we do not have insect targets for instant fusion. I think the only like fusion insect monsters in the entire format are, Quaggar Hercules, which is a level 6. So dead on that front. That sucks. Not that there are a lot of really great insect specific Xyz monsters. I think the only one that we are playing is Exostag. But yeah, we could be doing better if I'm gonna be honest. So we're going to go through the card by card here and just try and give you a sense of what Inzektor's problems in this format are, and if Instant Fusion should get the axe again, which it probably will. I'm going to be super honest. So we're going to start things off with the top of the list here with the Dark Armored Dragon, the only monster in our main deck that is not specifically related to our engine. This is a very compact engine, but it is a very, everything in here has a use case. The Dark Armed Dragon is just like a big guy that we use to beat over our opponent's monsters because a lot of our guys are genuinely just a little too small to do anything super relevant. And your main way of outing things is going to be like a Dragonfly Hornet or a Centipede Hornet or something like that. And if you don't have access to Hornet, you're having a rough time. So that's not great. So we use Dad and our general decent ability to modulate the level of darks in our graveyard to field it, and that's fine enough. It's actually one of the reasons why we're on Instant Fusion at all, is because we can go Lavalval Chain to stack the Dad to the top, or Lavalval Chain to stack the Dragonfly to the top for like guarantee finding it next turn. On to the actual Inzektor engine, though. There is notably one card in here that is not an Inzektor, but he might as well be. But we're going to start off with Inzektor Gigamantis. Gigamantis is a level 6, 2400 attack insect that reads, you can target a face-up Inzektor monster you control and equip this card from your hand to that target. This is a common theme that you will be seeing with the Inzektors, is Inzektors equipping themselves to each other and then them getting additional effects based off of what is equipped to them, and if things are detached from them. Think of like equipping a weapon and then detaching that weapon. You get an additional effect when you swap your arsenal out. Gigamantis, specifically while it is equipped to a monster, that monster's original attack becomes 2400, so it matches the Gigamantis. And if this card is sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you can target an Inzektor monster in your graveyard except Gigamantis, special summon that target, and you can only use this effect of Gigamantis once per turn. There is another Inzektor boss that we are even like considering. I think it's Giga Weevil, or is it Giga Cricket? It's one of these two. Weevil is the defense position version of Gigamantis, and also has that if sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, can reborn an Inzektor from your graveyard. These effects are fine. I do like Gigamantis more typically just because that attack boost is pretty relevant. And the other one that we were considering was Giga Cricket, which while it is in your graveyard can banish an insect type monster from your graveyard to target an Inzektor monster you control and equip this card from the graveyard to that target. And while this card is equipped to that monster, its original attack becomes 2000 and it will deal piercing damage. Cricket is definitely the worst of the Gigas, even though it does give you the opportunity to equip itself to something. I just think the reborn effects off the Mantis and the Weevil are more valuable. That is it for our Giga Inzektors, though. We are only on the one Mantis. You could maybe play more. I think it is totally valid to play like one Mantis, one Weevil, or double Mantis. We're just kind of trying to keep the monster count kind of low for because we want to find trap cards more than monsters, if I'm going to be honest. Next up, we have Inzektor Hopper. This belongs to one of the sub-archetypes of Inzektors that are the Inzektors that will attach themselves to monsters that then can detach themselves to trigger your Inzektor effects. The other one of these being Ladybug. Hopper specifically, while this card is equipped to a monster, that monster's level is increased by 4. And while equipped, you can send this equipped card to the graveyard in order to allow that monster that it was equipped to attack directly, but other monsters cannot attack during the turn you activate this effect. And Hopper also has that while on the field, you can equip an Inzektor monster from your hand or graveyard to this card. A lot of the low-level Inzektors do have this effect. It is shared by both Hopper, Centipede, Dragonfly, and Hornet. I think also Ladybug has it too. Yeah, all of our Inzektor monsters, except for Gigamantis, share this same effect of being able to equip an Inzektor from hand or graveyard to it as an equip card. Next up, we've got the only other level 4 in our deck in Beatron. This is a kind of Inzektor, but not in name. Beatron is a level 4 dark insect that allows you to send a face-up spell trap you control to the graveyard, then target a level 4 or lower insect monster in your graveyard and special summon that insect monster in defense position, and that is a hard once per turn. This is a way of detaching, like say you've done your combo in kind of a weird order. You can go, like if you have Hopper with a Dragonfly attached to it, you can get the Beatron out, use Beatron to send the Dragonfly to the graveyard, and then reborn that Dragonfly. If you already have a insect in graveyard, that would be a valid target for the Beatron, and then you can get your Dragonfly to field, and then you can go your normal Dragonfly route from there. Next up, we have 3 copies of Inzektor Centipede. This is your main searcher for the deck, and it is a level 3 insect with 1600 attack that can once per turn do the Inzektor thing of equipping an Inzektor from your hand or graveyard to this card. And if an equipped card is sent to your graveyard while equipped to this card, except during the damage step, you can add an Inzektor card from your deck to your hand. And while this card is equipped to a monster, that monster's level is increased by 3. Centipede, you will most likely not be equipping to an Inzektor unless you really need to for like level modulation purposes. But for the most part, this is going to be one of your monsters that you actually want in your main monster zone, equipping your other Inzektor monsters, namely Hopper, Ladybug, and Hornet. Because every time an Inzektor is equipped to it and leaves the field from its equipped position, it will get a search of an Inzektor card. That can be your equip spell, it can be your Dragonfly, it can be your Hornet, it can be your Gigamantis. This is pretty open in terms of its search, and it is generally pretty nice. Next up, we've got our one of Inzektor Dragonfly, unfortunately limited to 1 alongside Hornet. This is the best Inzektor in the deck, and it shares that same Inzektor equip effect from hand or graveyard. Also, each time an equip card is sent to your graveyard while equipped to this card, except during the damage step, you can special summon an Inzektor monster from your deck, except Dragonfly, and while this card is equipped to a monster, that monster's level is increased by 3. So it has that same effect that Centipede does while it is equipped to another monster, but the main important thing of Dragonfly is that it gets an Inzektor out of your deck. So if you have like Ladybug and Dragonfly, you can detach the Ladybug from the Dragonfly to get a Centipede out of deck. Centipede can then get the Ladybug, and then the Ladybug can detach itself from the Centipede, and then the Centipede will get you a search, and then you can make a rank 3 from there, or just ideally set a couple of trap cards to do the same thing next turn. Next up, we've got Hornet, the other limit 1, and once per turn, this has the same Inzektor equip effect. Also, while this card is equipped to a monster, that monster's level is increased by 3, and it gains attack and defense equal to this card's attack and defense, so 500, 200. And while this card is equipped to a monster, you can send this equipped card to the graveyard, then target a card on the field and destroy that target. Hornet works phenomenally alongside your Centipede and Dragonflies. This gives you an ability to both eat through an opponent's board while also plussing yourself. There's a reason why these cards are both at 1, because they are just really, really potent at eating apart boards. And if we had more copies of them, this deck would be feeling way better. But currently, it's not. So, you know. And the final monster we have in our main deck is the level 2 Inzektor Ladybug. This is the only level 2 in the deck, and it is extremely important for a couple of reasons. Ladybug has that same Inzektor equip effect, but also while this card is equipped to a monster, that monster's level is increased by 2, and it gains attack and defense equal to this card's attack and defense, which is 500, 100. And while this card is equipped to a monster, you can send this equipped card to the graveyard, then target a face-up monster you control, increase that target's levels by 1 or 2. A handful of phenomenal effects on this card. The level modulation is really nice for Xyz plays, but Honestly, the most important part of Ladybug is that it is a level 2 that can detach itself from your Inzektors, which combos extremely nicely with Insect Imitation, which is our main way of finding our main combo pieces, because both Centipede and Dragonfly are level 3s, and the way the Insect Imitation works is that it allows you to tribute any monster, special summon an insect monster from your deck whose level is 1 higher than the tributed monster had on the field. This combos phenomenally well with Ladybug, because if you normal summon Ladybug, go Insect Imitation, you can then get a Dragonfly out of deck. Dragonfly can then equip the Ladybug, and then you can detach the Ladybug, boosting Dragonfly's level up by 1 or 2, and then getting Centipede out of deck, which can then equip the Ladybug again. The Ladybug can do the same level modulation thing, and then the Centipede will get you a search for next turn, and then afterwards you can make a rank 4 or a rank 5 with these two. It's a really cool 2-card combo. I do like it quite a lot, and even though it's not that great, it is probably one of my favorite starting lines for Inzektor in this format. There might still be better things to do. I don't know if this is fully the way to go for Inzektor, but I do at the very least like it personally. Onto our spell lineup, we're on 1 copy of Allure of Darkness because these are all dark monsters. We're on 2 copies of Instant Fusion. I really wish we had a level 2 Instant Fusion target. That would be genuinely phenomenal. Being able to tribute a level 2 Instant Fusion target for Insect Imitation would feel unbelievable. We can still do something kind of silly with it. Honestly, if I were to cut or just find another space in here for a level 5 target, I honestly wouldn't even hate that. And I might actually do that real quick. Because if you go Insect Imitation and then you go to level 5, you can get Gigamantis out of deck, which is not terrible. It's not great, of course, but also it would be a way of cheating ourselves into a rank 5 while also keeping a Dragonfly or a Centipede on board instead of needing to use both of them, which I actually don't really hate. I kind of like that a lot. I'll try to figure out what the cut is for that as we go through this. Right now, I'm kind of just staring at the Leviathan Dragon. It's maybe that. But we'll get there when we get there. We also have the Holy Trinity, the Heavy, the Darkhold, the Reborn, and of course the Foolish Burial, because this is a deck that does want to play out of its graveyard. The aforementioned 3 copies of Insect Imitation, the 3 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon, and the final archetypal card in our main deck is Inzektor Sword ZackPyO. This is one of your other main searches off of your Centipede because it is a card that you can equip to an Inzektor monster that does not require a normal summon effect. ZackPyO is a equip spell that can equip only to an Inzektor card, and that card gains 800 attack and defense. If this face-up card on the field is sent to the graveyard, you can target an Inzektor monster in your graveyard and add that target to your hand. This is one of the main reasons why I wanted to play Beatron. I think Beatron works really, really well with this card exactly. ZackPyO going to the graveyard for Beatron's effect will not only proc whatever the ZackPyO is equipped to in a Dragonfly or a Centipede, the Beatron will get a Reborn, and ZackPyO will get you a card out of your graveyard to your hand. It is a really, really clean way to plus yourself a bunch of resources, and I like it quite a lot. The trap lineup is where things are kind of getting into cope territory. This is just a prayer and a hope that the deck will survive a turn. So we are on 2 copies of Bottomless, 2 copies of Mirror Force, 2 copies of Dimensional Prison, 3 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device, 2 copies of Call of the Haunted to get our guys out of the graveyard in case they do inevitably get outed, and then the 1 copy each of the Solemns. This is just legitimately me praying to God that our board will survive a turn so we can kill our opponent on the following turn. That's what these trap cards are in here for. Realistically, you could probably play more trap cards. I know historically lists are playing Threatening Roar. That's totally valid if you want to play that. I just don't really see the space for it because we're on the Insect Imitations and the Instant Fusions. But if you find something that fits, please do so. Please let me know. I love this deck and I want to play it more. Onto the extra deck, I still have not found out what the cut is. So I'm going to kill the Leviathan Dragon, and we're going to mess around with this level 5 Instant Fusion target. Is it good? No. Am I going to do it anyway? Yeah. Why? I just feel like it. Very vibes-based deck building here. I am going to use the Barracks because he does dodge Bottomless Trap Hole, which is very important to me. And it's also a dark monster, so we can fuel our Dark Armed Dragon a little more. Is that valid? I don't know, maybe. We're going to find out, I guess. But on to the rest of the extra deck, we're on the Barracks that we just added, the Darkfire and the Flame Ghost, all dark type instant fusion targets to fuel our Dark Arm Dragon. We're on the one Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger, because we can make the rank 5s, and technically we can make rank 6s, but I really don't want to. So we're just using Gaia Dragon as like an overlay material over our spent guys here. We're on, for our rank 5s, a Tyrus, Keeper of Genesis, and Ardreas, Keeper of Armageddon, and an actual Inzektor Xyz monster. We're on Inzektor Exastag. Exastag requires 2 level 5 insect monsters, which we can get to using our level modulation. And once per turn, you can detach a material from this card in order to target a monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard. Equip that target to this card. This card gains attack and defense equal to the half the original attack and defense of the monsters equipped by this effect. Very, very funny card. I do really like its unique form of removal. Even if it is a pretty small monster on its own, I do kind of like the things that it brings to the table. Additionally, we could be playing Inzektor Exa Beetle as a level 6 target. This card on Xyz summon, as opposed to once per turn, can target a monster in either graveyard and equip that target to this card. And then it gains the same amount of attack and defense that Exastag does, which is half of the equipped monster's original attacks. And once per turn, you can attach a material from this card to target a face-up card on each field and send those targets to the graveyard. Exabeetle is really interesting removal, and it's also really nice graveyard interruption, but it's just kind of weird to make, unfortunately, because it being a 6 means we specifically have to do like some very specific level modulation, which I don't really like. So we're not currently on it. On to our rank 4s and 3s, though. We're on 1 copy of Utopia to protect our field. This could maybe even just be a Gemnite Pearl to like trying to get over an Ophion or something, but I think Utopia's battle protection I value just a little bit more. We're on a Black Strip of Corn to out Maystrokes and Zenmaines. We're on Maystroke because it's worth outing. We're on the Volval Chain because it does have some really good applications in stacking to the top of our deck a Dragonfly or a Dark Arm Dragon, and is also graveyard set up for like Hornet or something. Maybe you could even play 2 copies of the Volval Chain, if I'm going to be honest. We're on 1 copy of Daigusto Emerald because shuffling back our resources is nice, but also it can reborn one of our instant fusion targets to act as Xyz material, which is not terrible. We're on an Abyss Dweller to hit graveyard decks, a Levier to extend out of our banishment when our guys inevitably do get banished for things like Dark Arm Dragon or something along those lines, and a Zenmaines to round up our extra deck. Onto our side deck, we're on 3 copies of Maxi. This card can be used with Insect Imitation to get into your main line, which is very funny. We are on 3 copies of Effect Veiler because it's just a generally decent neutral game hand trap. 3 copies of Lightning Vortex because it's a board breaker. 3 copies of Nightbeam to play into back row decks because this deck really dies to its normal summon getting removed, much like Dragoonity. And 3 copies of Mind Crush to hit the spellbooks and the Mermails. Nightbeam could maybe even swap out for something like Curse Seal, the Forbidden Spell, but I want to try out Nightbeam here, so we're going to leave it as is. But I have yapped quite long enough about this deck already, so let's see it in action. All right, we've got some games lined up against Telehero, and I'm going to be honest, I am really not sold on this build. I've done a couple of test hands, I've done a couple of test games, and just it's not quite there. And one of the big reasons is what you see on your screen. It's just we do not have enough monsters. I am going to, at the end of this video, show off the changes to the build that I've made, but I do at the very least want to showcase the reason why I've been having so much trouble building Inzektors, and a lot of it comes down to you just do not have enough of your cards that are like good enough. Like, having 1 Dragonfly really reduces the rate at which you draw your good starters. And I think going back and just like actually going back and looking back on builds that were topping historically is probably for the best. I think I personally have just gotten too lost in the sauce on making this deck be what it's not going to be. And you know what? It's part of the testing process. So this might be the very first deck on the channel to actually get a version 2 deck profile in like a couple of weeks or something. But these games were recorded, deck profile was recorded. It's at the very least a showcase of how things have evolved and where my mental has been at on building this deck. And if that's wrong, it's wrong. It is what it is. We're in with game 1 here with a pretty bad opening hand, if I'm going to be super honest. We've got 1 trap card in the deck that is supposed to be full of trap cards so we can find our engine, Instant Fusion, and double ZackPyO with an MST into our Telehero opponent, who has opened kind of the nuts, if I'm going to be honest. This is like an insane opening hand from them with Hero Lives, E-Tele, Foolish Burial, Dark Grepher, and Dad. So let's see what we can do here. We're going to find a bottomless trap hole off the top, just set this hand of all of our interactables, and we're going to pass to our opponent, who's going to go the Hero Lives. Hero Lives is going to get them out a Stratos. Stratos is going to get from deck to hand a copy of Bubble Man before... Oh, sorry, Malicious. So they can pitch this Dark Grepher before we bottomless trap hole that Stratos. They're going to go Mally for Mally, and then normal summon up this Krebons to make a Void Ogre Dragon. They're going to go the Foolish Burial to get the Plague Spreader into the graveyard to put exactly 3 Darks in the graveyard so they can field a Dark Armed Dragon and then eat our entire board. Go for a E-Tele into a Gaia Knight, the Force of Earth, and then just walk in for lethal. Yeah, that was kind of crazy. It's oops. All right, so game 1 didn't go too well, but we're post side now. We actually have like a workable hand, so we're gonna see what we can do here. We've got 2 trap cards that do something. We actually have like a way of starting our plays with Centipede and Ladybug. So, you know, an engine in the engine. Who would have thought? We found engine. Oh god, this deck needs more monsters. Our opponent is open pretty significantly worse, although they do have Vortex plus Mally, which is not terrible. But that's kind of all they really have going for them. So we're going to see what we can do here. We're going to draw into a 3rd piece of back row, which is pretty nice. We're going to go the Centipede for the Ladybug. Ladybug is going to detach to boost ourselves up, and then we're going to add a Dragonfly. We're going to set the full field and pass. Our opponent's going to draw into an E-Tele, which is pretty good. They're going to go Mally for Mally, and then go this E-Tele, getting them a Krebons out of the deck so they can make a Void Ogre Dragon after setting the rest of their hand. We're going to Judgment that, thankfully. They're going to go this Miracle Fusion to make an Absolute Zero, which is going to eat this bottomless trap hole. The Ab Zero is going to trigger destroying nothing, and it's back to us. We found a Hornet off the top, which is like phenomenal. Unfortunately, we walk straight into a Judgment. Back to our opponent, they're going to find a Hero Lives off the top. Hero Lives is going to get them a Stratos. No targets left in deck, though, so they're just going to walk into this Dimensional Prison. And it's back to us, and we have kind of everything that we could ever really need here. We're going to go this Centipede. Centipede is going to attach this Ladybug. Ladybug is going to detach herself, boost up the Centipede. Centipede is going to get a ZackPyO. ZackPyO we're going to attach to go to 24, and then in for lethal. Pretty low to the ground game for us game 2, but we did end up taking it off the back of our really powerful trap cards. Unfortunately, we have once again run into the issue of I can't find my engine. Where are my Inzektors in my Inzektor deck? We've opened a double ZackPyO again and double Max C, just a Balatro-ass hand and a single Compulse that is going to have to get us through this turn. Our opponent, thankfully, has also kind of bricked. No monsters here except for the Veiler, and then a Judgment, which is, you know, better than our trap card. So we're going to see what we can do here. They're going to opt to go first, find a bottomless trap hole off the top before setting the field, and accidentally setting that Veiler. We find an Insect Imitation, so we can go this Maxi to get a Dragonfly online. We're going to boost up the Dragonfly with one of these ZackPyOs and walk over this Veiler, and then set this Compulse before passing back to our opponent. They're going to find a Grepher. We're going to Compulse that back to their hand, but they are going to Judgment. They really want to stick this guy on board, and it's because they have this E-Tele. We are going to, at the very least, Max C to get a couple of draws here. We're going to go to the Gaia Knight, the Force of Earth, and walk over our Dragonfly. The ZackPyO is going to trigger to getting us this Dragonfly back to hand, but we still have to play into a bottomless. We're going to Reborn here. Reborn would actually be able to get our engine online because we can go Reborn for the Grepher. Grepher pitch one of our guys in hand, but unfortunately we are playing into a bottomless. So we're going to eat that bottomless, set our Centipede and our Call of the Haunted, and pass to our opponent. They are going to use the second E-Tele to go into a Void Ogre Dragon using their field, and now we can't really activate our spells and traps very willy-nilly. We draw into another Centipede, not quite what we're looking for, and they find a Bubble Man off the top. We can at the very least eat this damage and not die, which is pretty nice. But we have to find something to do on this turn or we are dead. We find an Instant Fusion. We're going to try to bait out the Void Ogre Dragon with the Call of the Haunted, which they do take. We're going to go the Inzektor Centipede into Instant Fusion to make a rank 3. We're going to go into a Zen Main. Zen Main is going to walk into that Void Ogre Dragon and in the end phase blow it up. And we just need to survive one more turn and we're here. Unfortunately, off the top, they find an Armageddon Knight, which is enough to make a Heroic Champion Excalibur, boost themselves to 4,000 and walk over our guy for lethal. Okay, we're back with the deck, and it is notably pretty different. This is probably where I will, if I do end up doing another Inzektor deck profile in like the coming weeks or something after the month of Meadowlands wraps up, this is probably going to be the list or something like it that I will end up showcasing. This is taking a lot more from the actual decks that are topping the format library tournaments. This is using Summoner Monk. This is using Threatening Roar as like a chainable trap to keep our monsters safe. And I think overall, this is probably the better way to go. The reason why I even made this video in the first place and started this deck profile off with a build that I was not fully confident in is because I wanted to showcase something that I feel like I don't really get the chance to showcase a lot when I do these historical deck profiles. And that is sometimes when you're building these decks, you just go in the wrong direction. And honestly, that's okay. There is not always going to be a correct answer. You're never going to always find the line when you're building these decks. And honestly, for half the decks in the month of Meadowlands already, I feel like I can go back and probably tune them up so that they will feel better. My general philosophy of building these decks changes as I make them. And the more experience I get deck building in this format, my understanding of what cards are good and what makes each individual deck good changes as we go. You've probably noticed that in the side decks, I think are a big showcase of when my understanding of the format has evolved. Because if you go back to a lot of my previous deck profiles, especially before the month of Meadowlands, a lot of my side decks are very different. And I think this is probably best showcased in more recently in the Ninja video, because that was utilizing some older deck lists, namely when I was showing off the Divine Wind Ninja deck and the Jurak Ninja list. Those were definitely older. And this is something that I wasn't really sure how I wanted to discuss, and just like how it's okay to make bad deck profiles. And I'm not even sure if I'm making this for anyone but myself at this point, but like, I feel like I get very into my head on if a deck profile is even okay to upload, even if it is probably wrong in terms of like theory and stuff. And I guess this is my way of saying that, like, I am going to upload more bad deck profiles in the future. That's just going to happen. I have a tendency to hone in on jank and bad combos, and even if it's not correct, it is something that I enjoy brewing. But that said, where Inzektor is actually ending up to kind of rein things back in is I think it is much more viable to utilize something like Summoner Monk and the instant fusions to be making more consistent access to Laval Chain, because Laval Chain does both set up your graveyard or stack to the top of your deck one of your playmakers. And in all honesty, that's probably like the best thing to be doing early on for this deck. And then you can have a setup graveyard or a stacked top of your deck to play off of that and then go off from there. I think this is much better than just relying on hard drawing your outs like the previous version of this deck was. And while I still don't agree with Pot of Duality, I am kind of coming to the understanding of why this deck would play Duality. I still don't agree on Duality on a lot of decks. I think it in Dragoonity is fully cope. I think it in a lot of decks is probably incorrect, but I am starting to see the light on certain things. My biases are definitely falling by the wayside for decks like this that do actually just need the extra help. But with all that said, I want to thank you all so much for sticking around to the end of the video and through my ramblings. I know this is kind of a weird deck profile, and I honestly would not be surprised if this was like the worst performing deck profile on the entire channel just because of the kind of weirdness surrounding it. But you know what? That's okay. We'll come back to this deck another time, and I will give it a better showing. And you know what? I'm excited about that. I am excited to show this deck off in a better light sometime down the line. So with that said, that's going to be it for me, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!